You too, what's going on? It's your boy, Thick Yoda from the Thick Players Club, and I'm back with another Pokemon video. This is going to be an in-depth guide. I'm going to go through this as quickly as I can, but it is going to be completely in-depth and everything you need to know about breeding Pokemon in Generation 8. So that's Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Sword and Shield. And if there are other games that come out after this video, it will apply to those as well. So this video will be separated into 3 different parts. The first part will be the basics of breeding. The second part will be the advanced section of breeding. And then the third part will be some examples. One will be breeding a perfect Gible that knows the right egg moves and is the right nature and has 5 perfect IVs. And then we'll also be going over genderless Pokemon because they run a little bit differently. So the second example we'll go over in part 3 will be Rotom. So skip ahead to whatever section is best aligns with your interests. So the basics on breeding in Pokemon. The basics on breeding in Pokemon is that you leave 2 Pokemon in the daycare with the daycare couple, also called the Pokemon nursery. And if they are, one is female, one is male, they might breed with each other, or if you leave it with a Ditto, they might breed with each other and give you an egg that you can then hatch. And they will continuously make more and more eggs until you take them out of the daycare. But first of all, where is the daycare? In Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, it is in Solaceon Town, pointed here on the image. This is what it looks like. You go inside, you give your two Pokemon to the daycare lady, and then if they can make an egg, if they can breed and make an egg, the daycare man who's standing outside here in this image will turn face to the right as opposed to facing down, which is what he usually does. When he's facing to the right, it means that he has something that he wants to tell you, aka he's giving you an egg. So first off, what Pokemon can breed with what Pokemon? So all Pokemon that can breed, right, so this excludes legendaries, so unfortunately you can't breed Dialgas and you can't breed Zapdoses, unfortunately. But all Pokemon that can breed with Ditto. And if you breed it with Ditto, it will always produce the same offspring as whatever that non-Ditto Pokemon is. In general though, gendered Pokemon, so Pokemon that can be either female or male, can breed with each other if they are in the same egg group, and there's 1 female in the daycare and 1 male in the daycare. I have a link to the list of egg groups on the video screen right here, and also in the description below. With genderless Pokemon can only breed with Ditto, so that's like Rotom, Magnezone, Metagross, things like that. They can only breed with Ditto, so if you have a Rotom with a Ditto, out will pop a Rotom. But 2 Rotoms cannot breed with each other, and also 2 Dittos cannot breed with each other. So you cannot actually breed Dittos in any way, funnily enough. Egg moves. I mentioned this earlier, but every Pokemon has certain egg moves. These are moves that Pokemon usually can't learn during level up, and the only way that they can learn it is if one of their parents knows this move when they hatch. So an example of this would be on the screen here. We have a female Garchomp with Dragon Claw, Earthquake, Swords Dance, and Sand Tomb, and a male Dragonite with Outrage, Twister, Flamethrower, and Dragon Dance. Obviously, Gible can learn 7 of the 8 moves from its parents. Other than Dragon Dance, it can learn all of these moves. But only 3 of them are egg moves. Sand Tomb, Outrage, and Twister are all egg moves, so the Gible will be guaranteed to know these 3 moves. So if you hatch a Gible with these parents, it'll know those 3 moves, those 3 egg moves, and then also Tackle, which is just the move that it knows at level 1. Next up is Flame Body and Magma Armor. The reason I'm showing you Pokemon with these abilities, and you can look up what other Pokemon have these abilities, is because having this as the lead Pokemon in your party when you have eggs will double the speed at which your eggs will hatch, so they'll hatch in half the time, which is obviously a game changer if you're hatching a bunch of eggs to try to get a perfect Pokemon, because it'll take half as many steps to hatch. What that half as many could be varies by Pokemon. Magikarp is one of the fastest Pokemon to hatch. I think it is actually the fastest Pokemon to hatch. It takes the least number of steps to hatch a Magikarp egg. Whereas rarer Pokemon like Gible or like starters and other pseudo-legendaries, Larvitar, these Pokemon will take a much longer time to hatch. So last thing is IVs. What are IVs? If you don't know what IVs are, they stand for individual values. These are different than EVs, which are effort values. Effort values you gain by defeating Pokemon in battle. IVs, individual values, however, are constant from the second the Pokemon exists. They are who you are. They're basically like your natural talent, your natural abilities. What IVs actually are is for each stat, HP, attack, defense, special defense, and speed, there is an IV. That IV may vary from 0 to 31. When your Pokemon reaches level 100, the difference between a Garchomp with 31 IV in attack and a Garchomp with 0 IV in attack will be 31. So if your Garchomp with 0 IVs has 200 attack, your Garchomp with 31 IVs will have 231 attack. So this is obviously a big difference because this defines the maximum potential of each Pokemon. And so if you want to be able to compete online, competitively, or in the battle tower or whatever, you're going to want Pokemon with good IVs because they're going to perform better than Pokemon with bad IVs because they're going to have higher stats, and that's just that. In Generation 8, fortunately, there's a new tool that Pokemon have given to us to check our Pokemon's IVs. Before, it used to be a big hassle to have to check what IVs any hatched Pokemon has, but now you can check it in a heartbeat. You just have to go to your PC in the Pokemon Center or go to your boxes from wherever you are, because obviously you can check your boxes straight from the main menu. And after you beat the game, you'll get this function called the Judge function, which you can press by pressing the plus button on your Switch. And it'll show you your Pokemon's IVs. And I have an example of what that looks like on the screen here. Now, obviously, they don't tell you the numbers, right, from 0 to 31. What they tell you is a word or a phrase, right? But each of those phrases corresponds with a range of IV numbers. So, for example, no good means that you have an IV of 0. So we want to avoid no goods. Decent is an IV from 1 to 14. That obviously also stinks. Pretty good is, I believe, 15 to 24, which again, it's pretty good. It's okay. It's not, the greatest thing. But then we start getting into the more important ones. From 25 to 29 is very good. Obviously, those are very good, but we're going to be going for perfects and near perfects here as well. So very good may or may not be good enough for you depending on who you are and what you want. Fantastic means your IV is 30, which means that it's exactly 1 away from perfect. Sometimes this is good enough, sometimes this is not good enough. And then obviously best with an exclamation point is a perfect IV. But that is the end of part 1. That is all the basics to breeding. Let's move on to part 2. So here we are on part 2. Part 2, we're starting off with breeding items, the tools that you can use to impact what happens with your eggs. There are 3 main breeding items: the Everstone, Destiny Knot, and Power items. The Everstone, which you might know as prevents evolution if you give it to a Pokemon. You can also give it to a Pokemon in the daycare, and if they hold it while they're in the daycare, every egg that you get with that parent will have the same nature as that parent. The second item is the Destiny Knot. Normally, when 2 parents create an egg, and you get that egg, the Pokemon that hatches from the egg will have exactly three IVs from each of its parents combined. So it might take the attack IV from the mom and the defense and special attack IV from the dad, or any combination, but it's always 3 IVs taken from both parents. What Destiny Knot does is that it takes 5 IVs from both parents instead of 3, which is obviously a big help. if you want to control what IVs, because IVs are randomly generated. So we want to take as much random chance away as possible. What we want is to control for these factors. So obviously Pokemon only have 6 stats. So if 5 of them are getting pulled from their parents, you have a pretty damn good chance of making sure that your parents' IVs get passed along to your the children's IVs. However, the Destiny Knot does not pick which IVs get passed down. So they might be the mother's attack, it might be the father's attack, it might not even be the attack, it might be the other 5 stats. It's that much after that is all completely random. The last item are the power items. So that's Power Bracer, Power Anklet, Power Lens, Power, I don't even remember what they're called. But generally these are good for EV training, but if you have a Pokemon holding it in the daycare and it hatches an egg, whatever stat that item normally corresponds to, the offspring will 100% guaranteed have that parent's IV in that stat. So if you have a Rotom, let's say, that has a perfect special attack IV and you want it to get passed down, the child Rotom that you're about to hatch, if it holds the Power Lens, then every egg that you get from that Rotom and whatever Ditto you have with it will 100% guaranteed have that parent Rotom's perfect special attack IV. And that's the advanced part of guide part 2, because obviously we want to use a combination of these items with the parents to try to build a perfect specimen. This ends part 2. Part 3 will be going into examples on how to do this. So let's go over some examples. I'm gonna go over 2 examples here. One breeding for a Gible that has the egg move Outrage, and then obviously 5 perfect or near perfect IVs with a Jolly nature, or whatever nature. And then after that, I will also go over the same example just with genderless Pokemon. Genderless Pokemon are obviously a little bit different because they can't breed with any other Pokemon besides Ditto. They can only breed with Ditto. So we'll go over that one when we get to it. But it'll be really important to make sure that you have like a bunch of really good Dittos. So let's start with Gible. We obviously want our Gible to be awesome, but we're starting with the Garchomp maybe we beat the game with. Or a Gible or a Gabite that we just caught, right? So we don't, the nature is terrible, the IVs are terrible, we're starting from square one. All right, so from square one, step 1, first thing we got to get on it is the nature, right? With the Everstone on Ditto, and you have a Ditto that is Jolly, we'll have a 100% chance of having a Gible egg that is Jolly. So you only need to get 1 egg. From there, we have another Gible and we have another Ditto. The Gible, right, obviously is the Gible that we just hatched from that egg, is Jolly, but has no good IVs yet. And Ditto will have a Ditto with a perfect speed IV. The nature doesn't matter, the rest of the IVs don't matter, just the perfect speed IV. When we give it the Power Anklet, obviously that perfect speed IV 100% chance gets passed down. And so step 2 of making sure we get the right nature and 1 perfect IV, it'll only take probably 2 eggs to do. It might take 1, it might take 3, it might take 4. You'll have a 100% chance of getting a Jolly Gible with a perfect speed IV. But from here on out, we're gonna want female Gibles. And so there's a 50% chance of Gible being female. So that's the 50% chance. So now that we have our female, Jolly, perfect speed IV Gible, we'll move on to the next step. And that's to start getting it more perfect IVs. We need 5, so we need more than 1 if we want to get to 5 easily. So we take our female Gible, right, Jolly, we give her the Everstone, so we don't have to worry about whatever male Pokemon we're breeding it with to have the right nature. Obviously, we've already picked the right nature. We already have it, so we got to make sure we keep it. And then let's say we have a Gyarados that has a fantastic HP IV. Fantastic means it has 30, not perfect 31, right? But I think we'll still be okay and happy with 30. So we have to make sure we get this Gible to 3 perfect IVs, right? We have the right nature and we have 3 perfect IVs. That's the goal. Just based off of odds here, right? Just doing a little bit of math. I did the math for you. The expected number of eggs it'll take to get a female Gible. That's Jolly with 3 perfect IVs out of 3 perfect options. It'll take about 16 eggs. We have about 7% chance. Gyarados has the Destiny Knot, so that we can pass down as many IVs as possible, thus improving our likelihood of passing down the right IVs. So you may have noticed that we skipped from 1 to 3, and there's a reason for that. It's because we can iterate along the way. For example, if we get a female Gible, right? If we get a female Gible, right, it's 100% going to be Jolly, and say it has this perfect speed IV and the perfect HP IV, but doesn't have the perfect attack IV, that's still fine. That improves our situation, right? That improves our situation because we can replace the old Gible that only had 1 perfect speed IV with the new Gible that now has 2 perfect IVs, 1 in speed and 1 in HP. And what that does is that actually doubles the chance that the next Gible that hatches from these 2 parents will have the 3 perfect IVs that we want. Right, you can see that the expected number of eggs to achieve went from 16 to 8. But from here on out, obviously the next step that we can get would be our Gible with 3 perfect IVs and the Jolly Nature, which again, guaranteed thanks to the Everstone. But once we've hatched that, right, we move on to our next step, our final step, step 4. And this is where we get our egg move, and this is where we get the remaining IVs. So let's say we have a Dragonite, right? He knows Outrage, he's male, and he has a perfect defense EV and a perfect special defense EV, or maybe it's fantastic, or maybe it's very good. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend that for speed or, you know, your attack or special attack. You want those to be perfect. But, you know, if your defense or your special defense is a little bit lower, like, it's probably fine. However, as you can see, even with, we have all 5 perfect IVs here that we want. We have the HP from the Gible, we have the attack from the Gible, we have the defense from the Dragonite, we have the special defense from the Dragonite, and the speed from the Gible. And the chances of getting all 5 of those IVs, even with the Destiny Knot, is still only 0.5%, right? So that'll take you, on average, 192 eggs to get our perfect Gible with 5 perfect or near perfect IVs. So again, we go back and we iterate. So every time we get a female Gible that has HP, attack, and speed, and defense, right? So it has 4 perfect IVs, we replace this Gible, our old Gible, with the new Gible. And if we get a male Gible, right, every Gible that we hatch is going to know Outrage, which means that we can throw Dragonite out once we get a better Gible. And if we get a Gible that has, you know, let's say perfect attack and perfect defense and perfect special defense, right? Obviously, you have to make sure that you're at least replacing the perfect IVs that you're knocking out when you get rid of an old Pokemon from the daycare. But so let's iterate. So let's say we get a Gible, a male Gible that has perfect defense IV, it has perfect special defense IV, and it has perfect speed. So, right, so it's just a little bit better than Garchomp, and obviously it knows Outrage because all Gibles that we hatch with this Dragonite will know Outrage, and now all the succeeding Gibles that we now hatch will also know Outrage because, again, the dad here, the dad Gible knows Outrage. Again, getting that 1 extra perfect IV into the daycare doubles our chances of getting a perfect Gible. And so we can keep doing this, right? And then the next time we get a female Gible, you know, that has 4 perfect IVs that added the defense, and now it'll only take 48 eggs, a 2% chance to get. And then, you know, if we get another male Gible that has 4 perfect IVs with our female Gible that has 4 perfect IVs, the chances that we'll have an offspring with 5 perfect IVs, the right 5 perfect IVs, is now about 4 or 5%. So that'll take about 20 to 25 eggs to hatch your perfect Gible, which is a lot more reasonable. So all in all, this whole situation will probably take you about 75 to 100 eggs, which with Gibles, obviously it's a lot because, like I mentioned earlier, Gibles, and generally rarer Pokemon have a take longer to hatch each egg. And this is obviously harder with Pokemon that have different gender ratios. So for example, starters. Starters have a 5/6 chance, so over 80% chance of being male. So the gender ratios will make this tougher because every time you're looking for a female Pokemon, instead of having a 50% chance of your egg hatching being female, you only have a 16% chance that it'll hatch female. That's how you hatch a gendered Pokemon. It'll take a long time. Obviously, you gotta make sure you get some Dittos beforehand. You gotta have some other Pokemon that have some good IVs beforehand. Maybe you wanna breed a Dratini and evolve it into Dragonite that has those 2 perfect IVs. Getting the right Dittos and getting the right male Pokemon, that always takes some time as well. And that's what you wanna do those things before you even start hatching for the Pokemon you want, because you want to make sure you always have all the tools you need before you start any project. So the second example I want to go over is with Rotom. Rotom is a very common genderless Pokemon that people want to have good versions of. Other ones, include Magnezone or Metagross. They're very often steel type Pokemon. But for our example here, we'll use Rotom. And again, we're starting from scratch, just the Rotom that you catch in the Plasma TV in Eterna Forest, in the old Chateau. Again, we're not assuming anything about its nature or any of its IVs to start. We'll need a Ditto that's modest. We'll give it the Everstone. And again, first egg that hatches is going to be a modest Rotom. So that's perfect. Step 2. We want to get a modest Rotom with 1 perfect IV, right? So we'll take a Ditto, the same Ditto as our Garchomp example, our Gible example, that has the perfect speed IV. Again, since we don't have to worry about gender this time, actually, there's a 100% chance that the first Rotom that we hatch with will have the right nature and have the right IV. So we now have a Rotom with a perfect speed IV and the right nature. So we can move on to the next step. Step 3. Unfortunately, step 3 is the final step. Iterating is a lot harder on genderless Pokemon because there's only 1 Pokemon you can iterate for, not 2. We can't actually improve upon, whatever Ditto we have. Whatever Ditto we have is whatever Ditto we have. So for example, in this case, we have a second Ditto with a perfect special attack IV, and we'll want to pair it up with our Rotom with the right nature and the right speed IV. And so now we have three perfect things in the mix here. We have 1 which is guaranteed, that's the nature. We have the special attack IV, which is guaranteed. The one thing we do not have guaranteed, unfortunately, is this speed IV. And there's only a 1 in 5 chance that we'll have that passed down, so it'll probably take around 5 eggs to get a Rotom with the right nature, the special attack, and then also crucially the perfect speed IV. So getting that second perfect IV is a little bit tougher. But now we can start iterating. We can use whatever other Dittos we have. Say, having a Ditto with 3 perfect IVs is extremely hard to find without hacking. So I didn't assume that they were perfect. I assume this Ditto, maybe it has very good HP, it has perfect defense and fantastic special defense. I have a couple Dittos like this. I have some Dittos that are very good, very good, very good. And so at least I know that I can guarantee that whatever offspring will have very good IVs, which again is 25 or 26 plus, which is still very good. So now here we have our Rotom with 2 perfect IVs, and we have our Ditto with 3 IVs that we want. We're gonna call them perfect for the sake of the breeding exercise in the other 3. So between the 2 Pokemon, we have all 5 perfect IVs. But again, we can iterate. So every time we get a Rotom that has a 3rd perfect IV, in this case, let's say, has the special attack and speed and defense, right? We can substitute this Rotom in for the old Rotom, and our chances of getting a perfect Rotom, again, double. and we keep doing this, the next one we get Spectral Defense, and now we have only a 1 in 48 chance of getting the perfect Rotom. And then eventually you just gotta hatch enough eggs and you will have your Rotom that is ready to go through the battle tower or competitive or however you want it, completely legit in as little time and as few eggs as possible. So this was the whole breeding guide. I hope you enjoy this. I hope this was extremely beneficial and informational for you. And if you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them. Remember to like, throw me a comment, subscribe for more, because the Thick Players Club is only gonna get thicker if you subscribe. So I'll see you in the next one. Peace.